The Soltera 2.5 from Aventon is a lightweight, city-styled option for people who like a more active and natural ride experience. And as the name 2.5 might suggest, this isn't an overhaul of the previous version, but rather a bike tweaked with some upgraded features that further pad the value and refine what the 2.0 model had already built. What are those differences and how do they impact the ride? Let's find out in today's review. Hey guys, and welcome in. I'm Griffin with Electric Bike Report, and if you're a fan of all things e-bike, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button to get notified about our weekly news show and to keep up with the latest in e-bike tech. So the Soltera 2.5 is a bike worth getting excited about. This bike packs a lot of value and has a really nice ride, and it feels like there's a shortage of lightweight e-bikes out there at entry-level prices, so I suspect there are a lot of different priorities for people that could lead somebody to the Soltera. There were a few things that really stood out to me while testing, and like most e-bikes, that starts with the motor. The Soltera 2.5 has a 36-volt, 350-watt hub motor that produces 45 Nm of torque. Now that's on the more modest side in terms of power, but it's really fitting on a bike like this. The hub motor and torque sensor combo that Aventon uses is one of the nicer ones out on the market, and the motor's power output translates beautifully when you pedal the bike. It's responsive and kicks in when you push harder, and it eases up when you do as well. The end result feels like a souped up version of yourself that goes faster, but it's not overpowering. It feels controlled and perfect for navigating busier multi-use paths or bike lanes on the side of the road. I also really appreciated the bike's maneuverability, both on the bike and off of it. It weighs just under 46 pounds on our size large tester, and with the narrow 700 by 38C tires and 620mm handlebar, it just adds up to a nice, nimble feel on the road. The rigid fork holds speed well even into turns, and you feel like you could ride this bike without motor power if you needed to in a pinch, or if you just have some really intense fitness plans. But of course, that lightweight feel is always refreshing. If you frequently heave a bike onto a bike rack, or up a few flights of stairs, or maybe onto a hook on the wall, you really appreciate how light it is compared to the average commuter, which can be 20 to 30 pounds heavier. Finally, there's just really good overall value here. We'll run through all the specs and features shortly, but overall, I think it's a nice grouping of features. The 2.5 model specifically reinforced the frame, added hydraulic brakes, and a different tire, but still has the same starting cost that the 2.0 debuted with. Overall, the features and some of the bike's aesthetic points just feel really uncommon at entry-level prices. Now let's see all that you're getting on the Soltera 2.5. We already mentioned the motor, but this is a Class 2 e-bike that includes a throttle. Powering the motor is a removable 346 watt-hour battery. The battery is UL 2271 certified, while the motor is TUV certified in accordance with UL 2849. The Soltera comes in 3 high-step aluminum frame options with a matte midnight black color or this Baja turquoise one for you to pick from. The tires are a pair of Kendas 700 by 38Cs. They have a road tread and reflective sidewall stripe. The brakes are a pair of Tektros. They are 2-piston with hydraulics with 180mm rotors. The drivetrain includes a 7-speed cassette and Shimano tourney derailleur. It has a 48-tooth chainring with a 14 to 28-tooth range in the back. The handlebar is 620mm with a slight rise to it. There are lock-on rubber grips on either side, and the left side of the bar has the thumb throttle and the pedal assist control pad. Over on the right is where you have a twist grip shifter. This is the Revo shift, which I actually really liked on this bike. It's got a satisfying click when you move a gear, and it lets you keep your fingers wrapped around the grip at all times. And in the center is Aventon's color display. It is still one of the nicer ones that you see out there, and it pairs to Aventon's app. And then finally, the bike includes a headlight and the taillights, which also function as turn signals. But all of the included bike and features comes in at an MSRP of $1199. So now that we know what the bike includes, let's find out how it did in all of our performance tests. In our first test, we look at the brakes. Now, I personally handle this test for all of the e-bikes that we review to keep things consistent in terms of effort and rider weight. For the Soltera, I rode it up to 20 miles per hour, hit the brakes, measured the stopping distance, and then repeated the process 2 more times to calculate an average. The bike did a good job with a 22-foot, 4-inch stopping distance. So that's a really good score for a city bike since we typically have narrow tires with this style, and having more rubber on the pavement actually helps with braking. So this is actually one of the longest braking distance averages of any class, as urban bikes right now are averaging 23 feet and 8 inches. So the performance here was really nice, but again, I just appreciate the value add. Since these bikes are typically lighter weight, many brands will spec mechanical brakes and even smaller 160mm rotors. Heck, some even still opt for rim brakes. But hydraulic brakes make pulling for a full stop easy, so I appreciate the inclusion here on this bike. For this next test, we're going to answer the question, how fast does the bike go in each PAS setting? We'll also do a throttle test to see how quickly that can max out. All right, this is the speed test for the Soltera 2.5. Right now going pretty effortlessly up to about 11 miles per hour without any motor help. I mean, the lightweight bike moves very easily on the roads, but let's kind of find out, where eco mode wants to take us. Kind of just keep moving up through all the different assist levels. So right now going around in 4th gear, going all the way up to about 15 miles per hour with pretty mild effort. Not a lot of noise from the motor. It's got really good engagement. Works really nice in sync with your pedaling. So about 15.5 miles per hour looks like. Move all our way up to tour. Again, I'm gonna move through the gearing a little bit up to the 6th gear now. Cruising speed on this one, topping off here around 17.1 miles per hour. Next up is sport. Kind of same thing. I'm maxed out of gearing now. I'm in 7th. Going a little bit faster. About 19 miles per hour. Again, I'm not pushing very hard at all. This thing moves really nicely. And we'll do one more time up into turbo mode. That should help us reach the ceiling up around 20 miles per hour. It'll be interesting to see if it goes any faster at all. We're going to stick to that threshold. You're not going about 20.2 miles per hour. I feel like the motor noise level has changed at all. It's just a little bit easier to push, but yeah, overall good. Subtle but meaningful power distribution. All right, it is throttle speed test time. So on your mark, get set, go. There's a little bit of a delay kind of when you hit that throttle down. It picks up pretty quick. It's got decent acceleration. Climbing up 13. Get it going. 17 miles per hour. It's a little bit louder than when pedaling. 18.6, 19. Climb, baby, climb. And 19.6 in a few words. Topping off for me, but just bear in mind, I'm a 235-pound rider, so. Welcome back to the studio. Let's recap those speed results really quick. So with no motor power, I was going at 11.2 miles per hour. And then in eco mode, we went up to 15.5 miles per hour, 17.1 in tour, 19 in sport, and finally topping off at 20 in turbo mode. A couple of thoughts came to my mind during this test. One, the speed profile here is solid, but it's kind of interesting too. Those speeds are reflective of a pretty casual effort on my part. And truth be told, since this bike is so light and rolls without much resistance, hitting 20 miles per hour isn't actually difficult in any assist level if you put in the effort. It just becomes progressively easier as you climb through the assist modes. And the second thought was how the drivetrain seems to work really well for a Class 2 bike like this. The gear range is just enough to not feel ghost pedally with a 20 mile per hour top speed, and it allows for enough bite when you pedal that the torque sensor can match you really, really well to help you dictate the pace you want to go at. Next, let's find out what range you can get off the Soltera's battery. We run two different range tests, one at a bike's max power and one at the lightest power to help establish bookend values for mileage on a full charge. The battery life on the Soltera 2.5 proved to be excellent. In our max power range test using the bike's turbo mode, we managed to cover 29.26 miles. And in our min power range test using only Eco Assist, we hit an impressive 55 miles. This is a major win since the city and urban e-bike category is currently averaging between 23 and 43 miles in our testing. Now, Aventon advertises a range of up to 46 miles, so while our results exceeded expectations, it's worth noting that your mileage may vary based on factors like terrain, rider weight, and riding habits. Now, obviously, this is just a really efficient ride. The torque sensor helps maintain efficient battery consumption, and the tires, lightweight frame, and more modest motor all factor into it too. Like I mentioned in the speed test, this bike is really easy to get going faster and even low PAS levels. So if you live amongst mostly flat terrain, you can easily get by on those lower power levels and extend your mileage. Let's head out to our fan favorite hill test. We do this at our beloved Hellhole Trail, which features a 1/3 of a mile climb with an average 12% grade. And to keep things consistent, our tester, Justin, performs the pedal and throttle tests for all the e-bikes that we review.
All right, we're out testing the Aventon Soltera 2.5 throttle test, and a lot of times this style bike does not make it up on throttle. So we are gonna see, I'm on turbo. Unless a miracle happens though, I don't think it's gonna make it up. Let's see how far it keeps going. Down to 2.7, having to definitely wobble and balance. It keeps going a little more than I thought, but I'm gonna call it. So it didn't make it up, about 30, 40 feet short of the first turn. So we're gonna turn around and do the pedal test and see how it does. Okay, we're back out on the Aventon Cinch now, and we're gonna see how it does pedaling. Again, it's not very uncommon for this style of bike to not make it up on throttle. Pedaling so far, but I'm not gonna push too hard on it. I'm gonna let the bike do a bit of the work. Down to about 9.3, shifting down to second gear, 7.7, and holding about there. So yeah, holding about 7.7, having to push a little bit as expected, but I'm not getting off the saddle, not cranking it super hard. Went down to about 7.1 on the bottom end there. Motor is very quiet, very natural feeling pedaling as well. Not quite like a mid-drive, but very responsive. So I'll let you listen through this next section here. I'm gonna go down to first gear. So as you can tell, the motor is very quiet. Any noise that is coming from it, in terms of frequency, it's on the lower end. As you speed up, you hear it more. And yeah, overall, I'd say that from a feel perspective, it's very natural feeling. Definitely get a good workout in, but it's still helping me get up quite a bit more than like a non-e-bike would be. So don't think it's going to be a barn burner by any means, but well, I guess we'll just go check the tape and see how it did.
So on the throttle only test, the Soltera didn't make it up the hill, but don't hold that against it. We're yet to see a city bike with a hub motor between 250 and 500 watts of power make it up with only throttle power. And then over on the pedal test, Justin was able to make it to the top in 1 minute and 56 seconds, which is a 9.4 mile per hour average. Now overall, I'd call the Soltera 2.5 a solid climber for what it is. The city and urban category has a few slower bikes that really bring the average of our data down, so this is a case where I'm going to use the median result, as the median time in this category is just 1 minute 50. So it's in line with the climbing performance of most of its peers. So if you're an active rider looking for a bike that gives you a boost, this might be up your alley. Now that said, it's not going to be the ideal bike for everyone. If you live in a particularly hilly area and want something that makes climbing significantly easier, you might want to consider other Aventon options such as the Level or even the Pace 500 instead. But for a lot of people who are switching from an analog bike right now, or for people who want a small boost but still want to do the heavy lifting when riding, the Soltera climbs hills well if you're in that crowd. All right, let's head back out for one last ride so I can share all my thoughts regarding what it feels like when you're in the saddle on the Soltera. So I think the biggest standout about the Soltera 2.5 is just its overall handling and feel. There's a lot that Aventon's kind of dialed in and smartly done with the construction of the overall frame, just in terms of how the motor handles. It just makes it a really pleasant ride. Like even just the, like comfort that you feel from the overall geometry is actually really nice. It's kind of an interesting design. I feel like the top tube's a little bit shorter, but again, it's kind of going to fit into that theme of a city and urban style bike. You can commute on this, but it's going to be at its best, especially if you live in tightly packed urban environments and where handling is more at a premium. But again, I just like kind of what they've done here with the construction of it. The 600 and it's either 620 or 640 mil handlebar. But it's got a little bit of a rise and a slight sweep to it, so it's actually kind of nice because I can be a little bit more forward leaning. They actually be fairly upright too. Keep things a little bit more comfortable, a little less aggressive of a stance, kind of as it were, and overall it just feels really nice. Allows you kind of get into it and really maximize the bike's handling, which is the star of the show. I mean, Aventon makes their own frames, they do their own manufacturing, and this just feels like a really good, stiff, rigid frame with good responsive handling. I mean, I can take, fairly tight corners at greater speeds and not, think twice about it. It just feels good as it goes into them. Now, as far as some of the other basics and things to know where it comes to the quality, I gotta give them kudos for offering the Soltera 2.5 in 3 different frame sizes. So far on this, generational upgrade, I'm not sure how to characterize the 2.5 aspect, but it's just a high step frame. I'm not sure if they're gonna bring the mid step back or not, but again, 3 different frame sizes. They say it's gonna fit riders 5'2" up to 6'1". I think you could even go a little bit taller than that. I am 6'1", and I can get a little bit more rise from the saddle here if I needed to, so I think it's actually gonna fit maybe upwards of 6'2" and 6'3". On your left, but overall, like I said, I just like a lot about what this bike does. So, the rigid fork, again, feels great into turns. The 700 by 38C tires, I mean, I really like the feel of them. Good grip, good traction into turns. Really, no complaints for me where any of that stuff is concerned. Go ahead and let me pass here. In terms of suspension, obviously you're not getting a suspension fork, so those duties are going to be handled by your knees. It's the type of bike that, it's for active and involved cyclists. If you do have a very bumpy or pothole, filled area, get out of the saddle a little bit, keep your soft knee position, kind of help so you can absorb those bumps. But again, what you're prioritizing with a bike like this is it's, lighter weight, 46 pounds, really nice, sharp handling characteristics. That's what you're going to value here. And then in terms of its overall motor performance, I like the fact that this is just a good, subtle push. It's not a rocket at your feet. It's kind of just like a hand at your back in a lot of scenarios. It just makes it easier to get going a little bit faster, go a little further. And kind of, I even appreciate the fact that, across all the different pedal assist levels, you can actually get 20 in any of them, but there's definite, varying degrees of like the cruising speed versus, the effort level to get to 20. That's something you can definitely feel. But overall, the torque sense is really nice. I think, and then could maybe tighten up the throttle experience just a little bit. I mean, I know it's a 36 volt, 350 watt system, but there's that slight little delay when you hold the throttle down. It feels like a little more mild to start out on your left. So that's something you can maybe look into. But I mean, overall, again, this is a bike that just feels like it gets a lot of things right. And, I think Aventon's done a pretty good job here.
So 2 final thoughts regarding some extras and the app. You can also add on a few accessories to make the Soltera easier to ride in different conditions. Aventon kept costs low for everybody by not including a few things, but it's nice to tack on some things like fenders or a front rack to commute and keep clean and haul a few items with you when you go. You can also add on practical items like a SR Suntour suspension seat post for a little bit more comfort, or a folding lock to make sure your bike stays put right where you parked it. And Aventon's app is still one of the nicer ones I feel that we've seen on e-bikes in the affordable price tier. There is a whole bunch you can do in the app, like speed customization. They've even got some gamified medals to encourage you to cycle more. There are some community features to chat and share photos with other Aventon owners, and there's a trip planning tool as well. Now, using the app is optional, but it's a nice touch and doesn't hurt to try out. We get tons of high-powered commuters in to test, and while I love those bikes, I always find lightweight e-bikes to be a refreshing change of pace. And for some folks, that's just an outright necessity, and I'm really happy to report the Soltera 2.5 is a really great ride with nice on-road performance. The motor provides smooth and natural engagement. It's the type that helps you to do more without feeling overpowered. Overall, it just strikes a really great balance. The handling is another standout feature. It's nimble and precise as you'd expect from a city bike, but it's also more forgiving and comfortable than most when it comes to body posture. The shorter top tube and the rise in the handlebar felt like it was easier on my back, and I definitely appreciated that when riding for longer distances. So if you're searching for a lightweight e-bike that won't break the bank, the Soltera 2.5 is a good choice to take a closer look at. That's gonna do it for this review, but let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you end up purchasing one, please click our link before buying if you feel that we helped you learn more about this bike. I'm Griffin with Electric Bike Report, and I'll see you on the next review.